we have completed part A, but we still have part B and C to go. Part B reads, perform the replacement study now. So yes, we did a lot of work, but we haven't even started with the replacement study. Part A wanted us to calculate the ESL and the associated annual worth values for both the challenger and the defender. Now that we have that, we can start with the replacement study. This is the first step in the replacement study. We're going to compare those two amounts that we got in the previous videos, and we're going to select the numerically largest one. Okay, so let me write it down here. Part B, perform the replacement study now. Okay, the values that we got in the previous videos was the annual worth for the defender. It's going to compete against the annual worth of, the annual worth of the challenger. It's going to compete against the annual worth of the defender. So for the challenger, we got minus 19,123, and for the defender, we got minus 17,307. Okay, remember these values, you may go back to the previous videos or part A for both the challenger and the defender. After comparing these two, we find that the defender is the numerically largest. This means that right now it is cheaper for us to keep the defender as opposed to changing it for the new technology. Okay, now the goal of the replacement study is that you eventually replace a defender, but at this point it's the study results are telling us to keep the defender. So what happens next? If you select C, that means that the replacement study is complete because you have replaced the defender with a challenger. But if D is selected, as in this case, we're going to plan to retain the defender up to the number of years that we got in part A, which for the defender would be 3 years. And we're going to wait 1 year and perform the analysis again. Okay? So that's what they're asking us to do here. So right now we performed the replacement study. This is our result. But then part C, it's telling us after 1 year. So we are assuming that the time went by. Okay, so this is going to be a replacement study. After 1 year. Okay, but what happens? Let's see what happens after 1 year. Okay, so yeah, we are ready. 1 year has passed by. And this is the 1 year later analysis. Okay, first of all, we're going to check that all the estimates are still acceptable. Many things can happen in 1 year. Okay, maybe our defender can deteriorate rapidly or more than we thought. Okay, so we need to check that everything is current. And if they're not current, okay, we must update all of our estimates and again do the ESL and the annual worth that we did in part A, and we start all over again. Okay, so, and if yes, if they're current, then, well, we would get the same result, so we would wait another year and so forth until we reach year 3. That means that it's time to replace it. Okay, but in our case, let's read what's coming up next. It says that the challenger is making large inroads into the market for electronic components assembly equipment, especially with the new international standard features built in. The expected market value for the defender is still $12,000 this year. Okay, so that didn't change, but it is expected to drop to virtually nothing in the future. $2,000 next year on the worldwide market and zero after that. Also, this prematurely outdated equipment is more costly to keep serviced, so the estimated annual operating cost next year has been increased from $8,000 to $12,000 and to $16,000 2 years out. Perform the follow-up replacement study analysis. Okay, so they're telling us that the Challenger is still on the right track, but there have been some changes going on with the amounts or the estimates that we previously got for the Defender. So right here, just as a note, I'm going to relate it to this step number 2. So I'm going to put here that this is from slide 9-15. Okay, so since here I'm just going to put the note that retain. Okay, so if D is selected, okay, expect to retain for ND years, which in this case is 3, and perform the study next year. Just a note, and this is what we're doing right now. So the study next year, this is steps number 2 and number 3. But we found out that the estimates for D, and only for D, are not acceptable. Then again, if they were the same estimates, then we will keep it until the 3rd year. Okay, but in this case, they're not acceptable, so we must update this estimates. We will obtain new annual worth values and a new ESL. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a table again, but remember that it's only 2 years because 1 year already passed by. Okay, in part A we had 3 years for the Defender, but remember we are 1 year later, so therefore we only have, oh, this is just for the Defender. Okay, so we only have year 0, 1, and 2. We have the first cost. We have the market value. And we have the AOC. According to the paragraph, the market value is still current. So if you go back to the previous video, you will see that it was 12,000. In that video, you will see that it appears in year 1. Okay, but now we move it to year 0 because time went by. And then the market values are the ones that changed. So next year, you will have 2,000 and then 0. And then the annual operating cost went up from the 80,000 that you had in part A to 12,000 and then to 16,000. So here will be 12,000 and this will be 16,000. Okay, so same thing, we must do annual worth of year 1 all over again, minus 12K, find A given P, at 10% for 1 year, plus 2k, find a given f at 10% for 1 year, minus the 12,000. This will give a total of minus 23,200. Then we have 1 year left. Annual worth of year 2 minus 12,000. Find a given P, 10%, but now it's 2, plus, this is 0, so I'm just going to put the 0 there, or you can skip it. And then we have these two values that at this point, well, we don't have more years to say that this is a gradient. So we're just going to do them separately. Same process. You move it to year 0, you move it to year 0, and then you distribute. Okay, so this is going to be 12k, find P given F, 10%, 1 year away from year 0, plus 16,000, find P given F, 10%, and 2 years away from year 0. Now we must distribute these two equally among those 2 years. It's going to be find A given P at 10% for 2 years. This will give us minus 20,890. We have our two values, and this is the smallest value of the two. So this right here will be our new ESL for the defender, or the annual worth for the defender that we will be using, and our new ND. Okay, so now once we have that, we're going to perform the study, and we're going to compare both amounts, just what we did up here. Okay, so we have the annual worth of the challenger versus the annual worth of the defender. There were no changes in the challenger, so we keep the same number. So we keep the minus 19,123. If there had been any changes with the challenger, you should have done this all over again, but for the challenger. But we keep it this way. And then for the annual worth of the defender, we use the same value, the new value that we got, minus 20,819. If we compare the two, you will see that now the challenger has the lowest value of the two. Okay, so after comparing now, if C is selected, the study is complete. Okay, so that means that we must replace the defender with the challenger now.